Good evening and welcome to the 17th meeting of Troy City Council. I'm Marty Baker, President of Council. Please silence your electronic devices for the duration of the meeting. We will begin with the invocation by Mr. Brock Heath, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Okay, let's go ahead and pray. God, we just want to say thank you for all the blessings and all the favors you put into our life. God, thank you for this community that we're part of. God, thank you for watching over anyone as far as our armed forces that are overseas, help them to defeat the enemy. God, thank you for watching over the people who watch over us here, fire and police. God, thank you for allowing us to move forward. If we say things and do things that are in line with what you want us to do, then bless that. If we say things opposite of that, wash it away. God, we just want to say we appreciate everything. Thank you for loving us, and we love you. In your son's name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Terwilliger?
Here.
Mr. Tremblay?
Here.
Mr. Swazer?
Here.
Mr. Heath?
Here.
Mrs. Oda? Here. Mr. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Twist?
Here.
Mrs. Stee?
Here.
Mr. Kendall?
Here.
All members are present.
We have some introductions tonight. Chief Matthew Simmons is here to introduce a new firefighter. Chief Simmons.
Christopher Hoyne. Thank you, Madam President. This is Christopher Hoyne. He graduated from Northmont High School. And he's also attended Sinclair Community College. He's been in the United States Naval Reserves. I saw some young Marines, but he's in the Navy just like I was. But he still is currently in the reserves as a corpsman. And he comes to us via West Carrollton and Washington Township Fire Departments. And he resides in Tip City. So I know the mayor would like to come and present Christopher with his hat badge, his shield.
Helmet shield. Christopher, on behalf of all of us here in the Troy City Council, our administration, and all of your fellow first responders that have joined you tonight, I'd like to present this to you, wish you the very best and safe time on as a firefighter here and a paramedic here in the city of Troy. We appreciate your service that you'll give to our community to keep us all safe. Thank you very much.
City Engineer Jillian Rhodes is here to make other introductions.
My guys are the guys behind the scenes. First, I'd like to introduce Mitch Beckner, who's the newly appointed wastewater treatment plant superintendent. He's worked with the city of Troy for 28 years, worked his way up from operations, operator tech, to assistant superintendent, and then being promoted after Tim Snyder's retirement. He holds a Class 4 wastewater treatment plant license and a wastewater analyst license. He has an associate's degree from Edison, a Piqua High School graduate, but he resides in the city of Troy and has 3 grown kids and his wife. So this is Mitch Beckner. Here's Ken Parks. He has been employed here at the city of Troy at the wastewater treatment plant for 23 years. Same pretty much worked his way up to assistant superintendent, holds a Class 3 wastewater treatment plant license and a Class 2 wastewater analyst license, associate's degree from Edison, Miami East graduate, and lives in Tip with his wife and 2 kids. I'd like to introduce Mitch and Ken.
Mayor Beamish has the presentation to present a proclamation for the Young Marines Red Ribbon Week. We have with us this evening Staff Sergeant Cassandra Roche, Young Marine Private Braden Miller, Young Marine Private Kaylee Miller, and their unit commander, Mr. Miller.
Before we begin, I'd like to ask a fellow Marine veteran if Brock Heath would come forward and greet our young Marines. Red Ribbon Week is a week that is celebrated October 23rd through the 31st of each year. And that is the mission of the Young Marines. The mission of the program is to develop good citizenship, promote a healthy lifestyle, and be drug-free in our youth and throughout our adult lives. And so it's fitting that I bring this proclamation to you, and then I will present us to Brock, who will present it to you as a fellow Marine. Whereas communities across America have been plagued by numerous problems associated with illicit drug use and those that traffic in them, whereas there is hope in winning the war on drugs, and the hope lies in education and drug demand reduction, coupled with hard work and determination by organizations such as the Young Marines of the Marine Corps League to foster healthy, drug-free lifestyles. And whereas governments and community leaders know that citizen support is one of the most effective tools in the effort to reduce the use of illicit drugs in our communities. Whereas the Red Ribbon Campaign was established by Congress in 1988 to encourage drug-free lifestyles and involvement in drug prevention and reduction efforts. Whereas this October 23rd through 31st has been designated as National Red Ribbon Week, which encourages all Americans to wear a red ribbon to show their support for a drug-free environment. Now, therefore, I, Michael L. Beamish, Mayor of the City of Troy, Ohio, by virtue of the authority that is vested in me, do hereby proclaim that October 23rd through the 31st be Red Ribbon Week in the City of Troy, Ohio, and I would urge all of our citizens to participate in drug prevention educational activities, not only during Red Ribbon Week, but throughout the whole year long, making a visible statement that we are a strong, committed community to be drug-free in Troy, Ohio, USA. I hand this to a veteran Marine who will present that to you.
Well, this is exciting. Obviously, if you want to win wars, then Marines are the best thing to do it, right? And so we do that better than anybody else ever has on the face of this planet. Okay? So we destroy the enemy. Right now, your enemy is the war on drugs, right? We're going to take that down. So I'm not even worried about that. If we get Marines involved in that, drugs going down. Is that right? Good? All right? You guys ready to do it? There you go. All right. So obviously, the Marine Corps is going to go out and get it done. I'm proud of you guys for taking kind of that torch and moving on forward. The uniforms are looking good. Those are looking shined up. Staff Sergeant's got a little bit more shine, so you got to get with her, okay? I want to present this to you. Have you thought about how to say hoorah yet?
You want to do it?
All right, let's hear your best hoorah. In the Marine Corps, we have something called hoorah. That's how we communicate. So if we want to say, good morning, good afternoon, I'm hungry, you're ugly, whatever we say, we're going to say this and it's going to do it, right? All right, so let's hear some hoorah. What do you guys have?
Hoorah!
There you go. There you go. What do you got, Mike? Let's do it. All right, Miller, you got it. You got it. You want to do it with me? All right, ready? So that's a good private. That's good. I'm going to fight everybody. You got to watch it. All right, ready? I'll do it with you. Ready? I'm going to do it anyway because it's fun. So, all right, so, you know, I was a Marine Corps infantry. We were door kickers. We went out and did the job right. When we did that, we'd say, "Ow!" Right? Is that good?
Brock, you better just give him the Brock.
I guess I'll represent this to you guys. I'm proud of you. Continue to take that on and move forward in the way that the Marines do it, okay? There you go.
Okay, we'll move on then. We have a public hearing this evening. Mrs. Knight, please read ordinance 048, 2016.
An ordinance amending sections 1143.13, 1143.14, 1143.16 of the zoning code of the City of Troy, Ohio, and enacting section 1149.13 and section 1149.14 of the zoning code of the City of Troy, Ohio, related to retail dispensaries, cultivators, or processors of medical marijuana within the City of Troy, Ohio.
Mr. Kegley, if you wouldn't mind closing that door.
He doesn't lock it,
Huh?
as long as it stays unlocked.
Okay, don't lock it. Just pull it closed for a few minutes till the hallway clears. Okay. I now declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the ordinance? Please come to the microphone and state your name and address before addressing council.
My name is Amy Shannon. I live at 1560 Windridge Place, Apartment D, Troy, Ohio. I'm a 45-year-old resident of Troy, a Christian, a member of the Troy First United Methodist Church, a licensed social worker. I have no criminal history, and I'm the face of a pain patient. I started and ran 3 in-person support groups for pain patients in the area and an online group for over 4,000 members. I currently work for 2 nonprofits in Troy, volunteer for the Troy City Schools and for the PEO Sisterhood. My journey of living in pain began at age 7. I had my first heart attack related to pain at age 36 and currently have 29 unique medical diagnoses. I have 10 distinct pain conditions, 2 of which are in the so-called suicide class, as they have the highest rate of completed suicides among all medical diagnoses. Every single day is a struggle for me to simply get out of bed. A shower is a painful experience and often requires a nap after. I have been prescribed so many medications I've lost count, and yet I continue to live in pain. I have at various times had prescriptions to allow me to take up to 14 Vicodin a day, all while wearing a fentanyl pain patch and using OxyContin for breakthrough pain. However, it quickly became apparent to me that in taking that amount of medication, it allowed me to exist but not live. So I now refuse all opiate pain medications of any type. I've attempted physical therapy, massage, acupuncture, occupational therapy, warm water exercise, aerobic exercise, stretching, TENS therapy, aromatherapy, and many other options. I am currently undergoing Botox therapy to attempt to control the cluster migraines that are causing me to lose my eyesight. Through all of this, I've spent hours upon hours researching options for myself and others I know. I've spoken with doctors in every specialty and subjected myself to any study or research that could help. The one main thing I keep hearing and keep seeing myself is that the use of medical marijuana can relieve symptoms of the diseases I currently live with, to the point that I may be able to function somewhat normally. I have no desire to get high. If I did, I'd take the 14 Vicodin I'm prescribed each day. I have no desire to be lazy. I frankly have the right to do so now, and I refuse. I have no desire to break the law. I could have accessed marijuana long ago to try to relieve my symptoms, but because I want to, 1, be legal, and 2, be safe, I've not done so. I'm not a criminal. I'm a person seeking medical care and attention. The state of Ohio has now legalized my right to do so. The state of Ohio has enacted a law that is safe both to the consumer and to the state. The state of Ohio's law is one of the most vigorous of all the states, which I agree with. The state of Ohio and the city of Troy are currently dealing with a heroin crisis. Did you know that a study recently published in the Journal of American Medical Association for Internal Medicine found that deaths associated with the use of opiate drugs fell by an average of 25% in the 13 states that were studied that had legalized medical marijuana? The biggest contributor to this was access to medical marijuana dispensaries. I'm a person seeking access to medication. I'm not here to disturb the public peace. If the city has no trouble with the number of bars in our downtown and with approving serving alcohol of all manner of family-friendly functions, I cannot understand the concern towards those seeking access to medication. What I'm looking for is the opportunity to not have to travel to another city to fill a legally obtained medical prescription. What I'm looking for is understanding this isn't about a drug, but about a medication. As an Ohio citizen who has the legal right to access medical marijuana to help manage my symptoms, I urge the City Council not to infringe upon this right and the right of other citizens to access this medical treatment within our city bounds.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor of the ordinance? Please come to the microphone and state your name and address.
Deborah Duncanson, 724 Sherwood Drive, Troy, Ohio, 45373. I'm in favor of medical marijuana. I moved here from San Francisco. I grew up in the Midwest. I saw it in the San Francisco Bay Area particularly, as well as the Palm Springs area. And it is quite an asset. My best friend is the executive director in San Francisco of a hospice, and it is vital to patients, especially those with cancer and they can't eat. It helps them eat. The thing that I've seen it work, and it's and the last speaker has a very good point. There's so many bars. There's pharmacies that distribute opioids. I mean, we have to open up our minds and think of. I mean, I'm part American Indian as well, and I saw that. You know, in our history, that has worked as well. And the pharmaceutical companies have really pushed opioids, and I think it's time to try something else. I'm shocked when I look around and I hear these stories, and I myself have a law degree. My daughter's a nurse practitioner. I have family that's in business. Particularly, I wouldn't mind opening a business here and a dispensary. But I'm thinking we need to open our minds in Ohio. I'm from the Midwest, and I've seen it work out there. It's just, I mean, if we allow bars, alcoholism is a horrible thing, and we allow bars and we allow pharmacies that dispense these really powerful drugs that are addicting people. And we have a horrible heroin epidemic. And marijuana, I don't care what you say, I haven't seen it out in California lead to heroin. I came here and I am shocked at how there is a heroin epidemic in the state. We need to try something different. We need to help patients, and we need to open our minds and try other things. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in favor of the ordinance? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak against the ordinance? Please come forward and state your name and address before addressing council.
Good evening. My name is Mary Louise Boss, and I'm business address in the city of Troy is 217 Public Square, southeast corner. My home address is 2146 Marymount Drive in Troy, Ohio, in the unincorporated portion of Concord Township. I'd like to thank all of you for this opportunity this evening, and I had prepared some things here that I would like to pass out to City Council, if that is appropriate, on the other side of this issue.
If you give those to Mrs. Knight at the end there, why she will pass those around.
I must admit, I'm very nervous. This is out of my comfort zone and the first time I've ever been on this side of a city council meeting. My career path has been 40 years in the court stenography industry, and I have traveled beginning in the early mid-70s doing transcript production in law enforcement, from federal government, grand juries, to private litigation, to government meetings like this. And the last 2.5 years I was in court in Urbana, listening to nothing but drug cases and heroin addiction. And I have a personal history of a tragedy in a family member who started as a young person on marijuana at a very early age and ended up committing suicide and lays in Riverside Cemetery. And I have very mixed feelings after sitting here this evening and listening to the kind ladies that spoke about the need for pain management in people's lives. And this is a complicated issue, but I'm here to mention that there is another side to the story. And I recognize that City Council is in a very difficult position that the legislature has put into the communities to decide how the communities want to be. So all I can offer tonight is my vision of this from personal life experience. I sit here, so I did prepare something to read. I don't know how much of this I will read at this point. You all have it. I have prepared information that I found off of the internet about some of the issues that the evidence has shown that marijuana does actually do through some of the research. But I would like to stand here and say publicly that I do thank you for this opportunity to speak, but I find I can no longer remain silent. I believe this is a public health and safety issue, and I do believe that our community as well as our nation has come to a point of deciding of what kind of a community and a country that we want to be. Do we really want to be a place that's safe, healthy, full of hope and healing, or do we want to be a place where it's an easy access for something that's not proven to be medicinally effective yet? As I read this controversy in the newspaper article written by Nancy Bowman in September of this year, I found that sparked within me something that made me begin to do a little bit deeper research. And I found that the legislature in the state passed the law against the voters' choice to legalize this. And it came out of Tipp City with our representative. And so I feel like Miami County has a real opportunity to be a leader and dissect this issue in a way that is thoughtful and considerate and takes into consideration all of the checks and balances to keep our community safe, as the mayor had given his proclamation this evening. I'd like to join up with the Marines, but frankly, your call scares me a little bit. I don't know if I can do that. But I do believe that there is a balance that needs to be released. And so I just want to stand here and say, as a business and property owner in Troy and Miami County, I fully support the following. I fully support making Miami County, Ohio, drug-free. I fully support Governor John Kasich's Start Talking Ohio program. I fully support Mayor Michael Benish's position favoring a total ban due to the community focus on battling drug addiction and abuse. I fully support the efforts of the Miami County Sheriff's Department, the City of Troy Police Department, the Mental Health Department, who are all working together to make Miami County drug-free. The marijuana dispensaries appear to be in direct contrast to these efforts to create a safe and healthy place for healing and restoration for victims and their families wanting to break free from the dark and destructive drug culture. And I find this a double standard by allowing this to be listed under medical marijuana dispensaries when it has not been fully declared yet under the pharmaceutical companies, and that this is a work in process. And I find it sends a double message to the children. How can you go and say stay away when you come and want legally supported dispensaries at the gates of the city? And I have found in the research I've done, missing from the discussions, are voices of citizens who have had to clean up the mess the marijuana drug culture has brought to the vulnerable and the unsuspecting, doing great damage to families. The elderly are vulnerable, who are often the least suspecting of all and the most willing to offer help in the way of opening their homes and finances and emotional support, at the risk of their own safety and at the risk of well-being and their own future. No matter how medically beneficial marijuana is painted for the pure purpose of financial gain, marijuana's very nature and chemical makeup classifies it as a Schedule II drug, meaning it is high on the list to be abused. So it's fair to conclude legalizing marijuana does not take away its abusive potential. It does not solve its abusive nature. and it does not solve the abuse of the dark underworld of the drug culture. It is well documented that marijuana is a gateway drug, and you will find that in the literature I sent. That seems parallel to the gates of entrance into the Miami County area through the city government of Troy, Ohio, thereby separating the cooperation of law enforcement departments working to keep our community safe. Troy is not the size of Cleveland, Toledo, Cincinnati, or Columbus, so I question why Troy needs 5 marijuana dispensaries. The city leaders of Troy hold a direct responsibility for what they will bring into our surrounding neighborhoods through these marijuana dispensaries. And as a citizen, I have a concern. I wonder what recourse citizens will have against predators who know the location of the dispensaries, the caregivers, the dwellings that the medical marijuana users occupy, the children and the elderly living under the power of those users, and the vulnerability of those users and unsuspecting citizens. While it makes sense to have medical marijuana under the power of hospice, which is a controlled environment with checks and balances in place in the community, that makes sense. While it makes sense that somebody that's in pain and wants to try marijuana to help their pain, that makes sense under the guise of a medical doctor. What does not make sense to me is dispensaries in 5 locations that I wonder what neighborhoods they're going to be in. And through my experience in law enforcement and reporting, as a court stenographer, listening under the judge's guidance and behind chambers, knowing what people that are seeking clients in the drug culture do to try to find those clients, it brings me great concern to our community. And so again, I believe Miami County has the resources, the caring, the loving community that this county is to accomplish what needs to be done on both sides to help bring hope and help to those who are in pain physically, but to also balance the protection of our community and send a clear message about what these medical dispensaries actually are. And as a citizen right now studying this and trying to understand it, I'm confused because I don't quite yet see the clarity of the balance between the medical and the drug culture that has been there. So I would ask you all to take into consideration before you make your decision those people in the community that can't speak for themselves. So again, I would support a total ban at this time on the marijuana drug culture efforts to be legalized in Miami County until there's more community involvement through some of the social service agencies, through law enforcement, until there's more of the overall picture that can be spoken about in a public forum to help this community make the decision, because I believe the leadership is here. I believe Miami County can lead our state and lead our nation on this, and that we can be a safe place and a place that can heal and bring hoping. And I believe also, if we create a safe zone, if we are truly a community that wants hope and health and healing, that people are going to seek this out, because there's another side to this. People want a safe place. And so I appreciate your time. I appreciate your willing to listen to me, and thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak against the ordinance? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Mrs. Knight, please read a summary of the minutes from the October 3rd meeting of City Council.
Minutes of Council, October 3, 2016. There were presentations of introductions of the Mayor's Youth Council. Committee report, Safety and Health Committee recommended legislation be prepared approving the 2017 agreement for funding for Miami County Public Health. Resolution number R43, 2016, an agreement with Miami County General Health District for health services was given first reading and adopted. Resolution Number R44, 2016, an agreement with the Public Defender's Agreement for 2017 at no cost increase, first reading and adopted. Ordinance Number 048, 2016, regarding medical marijuana was given first reading. It was a presentation regarding the Troy Development Council status and also regarding the Mayor's Advocacy Cycling Committee. There being no further business, council adjourned at 7:48.
Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Move we accept the minutes as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Kendall and seconded by Mr. Tremblay to accept the minutes. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Tremblay?
Yes.
Mr. Swazer?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Mrs. Oda?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Sneed?
Yes.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Mr. Twilliger?
Yes.
Minutes are adopted.
The Finance Committee has two reports this evening. Chairman, Mr. Kendall.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. The first report involves contracts for fireworks for July 4th, 2017 and July 4th, 2018. On October 3rd, this committee met to consider authorizing the contract for the fireworks for July 4th for years 2017 and 2018. The cost of the fireworks has been $31,500 since 2006. Rossi has proposed a 10% increase or $34,650 for each 2017 and 2018, which will include an enhanced program. The Troy Foundation has generously increased the grant allocation by $2,000 for 2017 based on an enhanced program. The city will also contact Concord Township, a funding partner since 2005, and Staunton Township regarding financial participation. It is the recommendation of this committee that legislation be prepared authorizing the Director of Public Service and Safety to enter into a contract with the Rossi Company, Incorporated, at a cost not to exceed $34,650 each year for the July 4th, 2017 and 2018 fireworks. And this report is respectfully submitted by Mr. Swazer, Mr. Tremblay, and myself as Chairman of the Finance Committee.
Are there any questions from council members? You may continue, Mr. Kendall.
Okay, the second report regards the sale of surplus items. On October 3rd, this committee met to review the request that some excess public property be declared surplus and offered for sale. It is a recommendation of this committee that legislation be prepared declaring the below listing as surplus items no longer needed for a public purpose and authorizing the Director of Public Service and Safety to advertise the sale of the items listed. And this is respectfully submitted by Mr. Swazer, Mr. Tremblay, and myself as chairman.
Any comments or questions from council? Thank you, Mr. Kendall.
Thank you.
Streets and Sidewalks Committee has one report for us this evening. Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, Madam President. This is an agreement with Strand Associates to study the West Main Street corridor from Cherry Street out to I-75. On October 3rd, this committee met to consider authorizing a professional services agreement with Strand Associates Incorporated of Cincinnati, Ohio, for the study of the West Main Street corridor from I-75 to Cherry Street at a cost not to exceed $180,000. The study would provide a plan and evaluate infrastructure improvements as well as develop a conceptual corridor plan to address anticipated growth needs and address safety concerns for the next 20 years. $200,000 was budgeted for this study. While ODOT has scheduled a resurfacing of this roadway area for the year 2020, ODOT is willing to work with the city to determine a phased program that will permit the city to seek funding/grant assistance for elements of the improvement project and receive the best benefit from the ODOT paving work. It is the unanimous recommendation of this council or this committee that legislation be prepared authorizing the Director of Public Service and Safety to enter into a professional services agreement with Strand Associates, Inc. of Cincinnati, Ohio, to perform a West Main Street corridor study from I-75 to Cherry Street at a cost not to exceed $180,000. And this is respectfully submitted by Mr. Heath, Mrs. Snee, and myself as chair.
Are there any questions from council? Thank you, Mr. Phillips. The last report is from the Utilities Committee and Chairman Mr. Tremblay.
Thank you, Madam President. The Utilities Committee met concerning amendments to the wastewater treatment plant pretreatment ordinance. The committee met on October 3rd to consider language amendments proposed by staff so that the ordinance language is in compliance with the provisions of the most recently issued National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit with the wastewater treatment plant. The proposed amendments are discussed in this attachment. It is a recommendation of this committee that legislation be prepared amending the sections of the sanitary sewer pretreatment ordinance sections 915.05E6, 915.06F, and 915.07C as shown in the attachment so that the City of Troy's ordinance sections comply with the required wording of the NPDES permit issued to the wastewater treatment plant. And this is respectfully submitted by Mr. Terwilliger, Mr. Twist, and myself as chair.
Are there any questions from council? Thank you, Mr. Tremblay.
You're welcome.
We now open the meeting to citizen comments. There is a 2-minute time limit at this point in the meeting, and Mr. Kerber is our timekeeper. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments related to any of the agenda items this evening? If so, please come to the microphone and state your name and address before addressing council.
Deborah Duncanson, 724 Sherwood Drive, Troy. If this ordinance, we allow dispensaries in Troy, and again, I'm in favor of that because I've seen it work in California. I think people have a perception that if we allow this, that people will be walking around smoking pot and there'll be all this horrible drug activity on the streets of Troy. That's not it. There are ill people out there. My question is, if we do allow the dispensaries here in Troy, how will those be distributed as far as who could open up one?
This issue will be going to committee from here. It will not be voted on tonight, and so that has not been determined yet. I would encourage you, if you want to follow through on this, I don't think a meeting has been set yet.
It has not yet.
It has not yet been set. It's been assigned to our Law and Ordinance Committee, and there will be a meeting. And if you would like, at the end of the meeting, to leave your name and phone number with Mrs. Knight, she can contact you when that meeting is set, and you are welcome to attend that meeting and get further details then. But at this point, none of that has been determined yet.
Been determined. Okay, thank you. I'm new here, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments? And we'll move on to resolutions and ask Mrs. Knight to read Resolution R45, 2016.
Resolution number R45, 2016, resolution authorizing the Director of Public Service and Safety of the City of Troy, Ohio, to enter into an agreement with the Rossi Company, Inc. for fireworks. This is for a 2-year agreement, cost not to exceed $34,650 per year. First reading.
Are there any questions from council?
Move for suspension. Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Kendall and seconded by Mr. Schweizer to suspend the rules. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Schweizer?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Mrs. Oda?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Sneed?
Yes.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Mr. Terwilliger?
Yes.
Mr. Tremblay?
Yes.
Move to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Schweizer and seconded by Mr. Twist to adopt the resolution. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Mrs. Oda?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Sneed?
Yes.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Mr. Terwilliger?
Yes.
Mr. Tremblay?
Yes.
Mr. Schweizer?
Yes.
Resolution is adopted.
Mrs. Knight, please read Resolution R46, 2016.
Resolution number R46, 2016, resolution authorizing the Director of Public Service and Safety of the City of Troy, Ohio, to enter into an agreement with Strand Associates, Inc. of Cincinnati, Ohio, for a study of the West Main Street corridor. Cost is not to exceed $180,000. The area to be studied is West Main from Cherry Street to Interstate 75. First reading.
Are there any questions from council?
I do have a question, Madam President.
Mrs. Zoda?
Do we have any idea how long this study will take?
We're anticipating in the 6 to 9 month range, depending on their research. Of course, there will be some weather-related activities that they'll have to do out there. They also have to do some research on where the right-of-way is, what kind of any kind of easements and any other restrictions might be out there.
That was just a curiosity question, but thank you.
Any other questions?
Move for suspension of the rules.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Tremblay and seconded by Mr. Schweizer to suspend the rules. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mrs. Oda?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Snead?
Yes.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Mr. Twilliger?
Yes.
Mr. Tremblay?
Yes.
Mr. Schweizer?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Move for adoption.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Kendall and seconded by Mr. Heath to adopt the resolution. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Snead?
Yes.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Mr. Twilliger?
Yes.
Mr. Tremblay?
Yes.
Mr. Schweizer?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Mrs. Oda?
Yes.
Resolution is adopted.
We'll move on to ordinances and ask Mrs. Knight to read Ordinance 048, 2016.
Ordinance number 048, 2016, an ordinance amending sections 1143.13, 1143.14, 1143.16 of the zoning code of the City of Troy, Ohio, and enacting section 1149.13 and section 1149.14 of the zoning code of the City of Troy, Ohio, related to retail dispensaries, cultivators, or processors of medical marijuana within the City of Troy, Ohio. This has been recommended by the Troy Planning Commission. There was a public hearing this evening, and there will be a committee meeting set, second reading.
Okay. This will go to a third reading and to committee then. Mrs. Knight, please read Ordinance 049, 2016.
Ordinance number 049, 2016, ordinance releasing mortgage lien for Troy Business Park LTD and declaring an emergency. The loan made to Troy Business Park LTD has been paid in full, therefore the mortgage must be released. First reading.
Any comments from council?
Move for suspension.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Kendall and seconded by Mr. Twist to suspend the rules. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Snead?
Yes.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Mr. Twilliger?
Yes.
Mr. Tremblay?
Yes.
Mr. Schweizer?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Mrs. Oda?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Move for adoption. Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Kendall and seconded by Mr. Schweizer to adopt the ordinance. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mrs. Snead?
Yes.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Mr. Twilliger?
Yes.
Mr. Tremblay?
Yes.
Mr. Schweizer?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Mrs. Oda?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted.
Mrs. Knight, please read Ordinance 050, 2016.
Ordinance number 050, 2016. Ordinance amending Chapter 915 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Troy, Ohio, use of public sewers, specifically Sections 915.05E6, 915.06F, and 915.07C. This is to bring the language of the ordinance into compliance with the NPDES permit. First reading.
Are there any questions from council?
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Tremblay and seconded by Mr. Twist to suspend the rules. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Mr. Twilliger?
Yes.
Mr. Tremblay?
Yes.
Mr. Schweizer?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Mrs. Oda?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Snead?
Yes.
Move for adoption.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Kendall and seconded by Mr. Schweizer to adopt the ordinance. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Terwilliger?
Yes.
Mr. Tremblay?
Yes.
Mr. Swayzer?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Mrs. Oda?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Sneed?
Yes.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted.
Mrs. Knight, please read ordinance 051, 2016.
Ordinance number 051, 2016, ordinance declaring municipally owned personal property is no longer needed for municipal purposes and authorizing the sale of such property. The property would be a list of 5 vehicles and 225 surplus phones, and this is the first reading.
Are there any questions or comments from council?
Move to suspend.
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Oda and seconded by Mr. Schweizer to suspend the rules. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Tremblay?
Yes.
Mr. Swayzer?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Mrs. Oda?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Sneed?
Yes.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Mr. Twilliger?
Yes. Move to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Schweizer and seconded by Mr. Twist to adopt the ordinance. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Swayzer?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Mrs. Oda?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Sneed?
Yes.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Mr. Terwilliger?
Yes.
Mr. Tremblay?
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted.
That completes the business portion of tonight's meeting. Mrs. Knight, are there any communications or announcements?
No, they're not.
Tonight, we welcome Mr. John Wilson, Executive Director at Troy Main Street, to provide an update on that organization's activities. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam President and Council. On behalf of the Board of Directors and staff, I'd like to thank the Council for its financial and in-kind support of Troy Main Street. We appreciate your demonstrated commitment to preserving and improving our downtown. Troy Main Street believes that we're conscientious stewards of the taxpayers' dollars, and we provide a significant return on their investment. We develop our plan of work to meet our mission to coordinate the efforts of all those dedicated to strengthening the heart of our community. Troy Main Street organizes, promotes, funds, and manages public events and initiatives related to our mission with the end goal of bringing people downtown to promote the district. In 2016, we provided or assisted in a major way 32 separate events in downtown Troy. So far, we've worked on the picnics on the Plaza lunchtime series, the Strawberry Festival, the Troy Friday night summer concert series, Troy Streets Alive, the 15-week downtown Troy Farmers Market, and the Taste of Troy most recently. We have 5 more big events yet this year. This weekend with Hometown Halloween, we have a Troy versus Pickwood Pep Rally. We have the Downtown Merchants Open House, Small Business Saturday, and of course the Hometown Holiday and Grand Illumination and all the Christmas events that go along with that through the end of the year. We also work hard to recruit and attract businesses to the area, and we work with retaining existing businesses as well. But already this year we have 10 new businesses that have opened first floor spaces, and 1 additional business that's revamped to promote greater success and vibrancy. We promote downtown business in a variety of ways. We prepare businesses to maximize their marketing and sales opportunities at the Strawberry Festival and all downtown events. We provide destination marketing of downtown Troy through print media, social media, radio, and more. We provide guidance and advocacy in addressing problems and issues downtown. We act as available space clearinghouse to match new businesses with property owners. And we direct new businesses and existing services to resources. We're delighted to report that the first floor occupancy rate for downtown right now is at 97%. We also participate in downtown beautification. This year we oversaw the planner program in conjunction with the Troy Beautification Committee. We saw a significant increase this year for planner requests, and we couldn't meet the demand. However, we did place 11 more this year. We're up to 71 from 60 last year, with plans for increasing that this year if the demand. We look after marketing. We seek out and take advantage of new destination marketing opportunities for downtown. We reach out to the greater region to attract visitors to downtown Troy. We take advantage of social media opportunities to promote and cross-promote everything associated with downtown. This year, we developed and produced map cards, banners, and magnetic posters for downtown Troy. We place those in each kiosk. We distribute thousands to hotels and airports, and of course, to events and all the downtown businesses. Troy Main Street has stakeholder buy-in. Paid membership in Troy Main Street remains strong, and we expect continued growth by providing value and feeding the Troy Main Street to potential members. Volunteer participation on our committees and our events has grown. We also have partnerships with dozens of other organizations and develop good working relationships with other nonprofits, government entities, and key community figures. Troy Main Street is a Heritage Ohio affiliate. In fact, this year, Troy Main Street Inc. received national accreditation again for our work in 2015. We're considered to be one of the strongest programs in the state of Ohio. 2016 has been a transition year, though, for Troy Main Street, with my hiring in April and the more recent hiring of our marketing events coordinator, Shelley Calvert. However, we're both long-time or lifetime Troy residents, and we have a passion for the city and its downtown. We look forward to soon kicking off a comprehensive downtown riverfront development study as lead facilitators for the Downtown Riverfront Development Group. This group consists of the Troy Foundation, Troy Main Street, the City of Troy, the Troy Development Council, and we're currently seeking additional financial partners. Each of these stakeholders has provided funding and expertise resources to move this project forward. The study will be conducted by MKSK, an urban design company specializing in the revitalization of riverfront cities. The inspiration for this project is an extension of the opportunities identified during the America's Best Communities competition that Troy participated in throughout this past year. Troy Main Street again is excited to present Sculptures on the Square series again in 2017, and the plans are well in the works. Next year's presentation will include the largest number of artworks to date, and will have an international flair that will blend well with Troy and its great amenities, so stay tuned for that. Council, I appreciate the opportunity to present the Troy Main Street up.
Any council members have any questions of Mr. Wilson? No questions?
I'd just like to make a comment that John is doing a wonderful job with Main Street. Thank you, John.
Anything else? Thank you very much for your presentation. We now have a presentation from Mr. Bobby Phillips, and is Scott here?
No, he's not.
Not here, okay.
My counterpart had a cross-country coaches meeting this evening, so he indicated to me he's going to be late. I was hoping that late would have been here, but he's not here. The update that I'm here to give to council and all the folks out there watching is about issue 3, the Operation Recreation Tax Levy, which encompasses Duke Park, the Miami Shores Golf Complex, and the Troy Senior Center. I think you all have the packet in front of you that includes the information card that is what we will be handing out in neighborhoods and putting in newspaper boxes and on front doorsteps and that sort of thing. So a lot of the citizens of Troy will get this. What we have done in the recent past is we have hit all of the fraternalish organizations, Lions, Optimus, Rotary, Kiwanis, and one more, and I can't think of it. We have made presentation to the Park Board of Commissioners and updated them the same as with the same information that I'm giving you here this evening. And we will be making presentations to the Troy soccer coaches tomorrow evening. We'll be at Candidates Night to answer any questions on the 20th. 24th, I have a meeting with the Troy Christian High School Board of Education. And the 25th, the Operation Recreation Committee is hosting an open house right behind us at First Place Christian Center, which is First United Methodist Church. And I would ask everyone if they would please enter the building on the Franklin Street side, as the United Methodist Women are having an event in the sanctuary. So the Cherry Street entrance will be open. So just make a left turn instead of a right when you go in the building so that you don't interrupt those folks in there. So we are reaching out to the community. We've had interviews and articles with the Dayton Daily News and the Troy Daily News also, and I don't know if they're doing any follow-up on that and that sort of thing. All of the items that you see there with the information card and the yard signs that are currently out in our city, the money for those has been generated within the committee personally raised, so there's not any big financial impact on any particular person, so it's spread out through our committee. We've expended just probably a little over $2,000. That's all it's cost us. We will be addressing every Saturday from here on out as a usual campaign tactic in distributing the handout cards, and we'll be meeting out at the old Club 55 now Signatures, and then our groups and organizations and the baseball, soccer players and others that will be out there, and the parents will be getting their material and then dispersing this stuff over the weekends to come between now and election. I did get a couple of questions from Mr. Kendall, and I will address those. Number one was, how can Recreation 2020 make the decision how the money is spent from the levy? The Operation Recreation Committee is not making any decision as to how the money is spent. We were requested by Safety Service Director as a recommendation of projects of how to what our priorities would be if money, in case the levy fails, in case the levy passes, in case we raise the $4 million private money, or in case we don't have the $4 million, what our priority would be with all of the projects. And unanimously within our committee, we because the overriding project that needs to be done here is the baseball complex, moving that from Noop 25A out to Duke Park is the overriding priority, that if the levy passes and no private money is raised, that complex is to be paid for by levy funds, is our recommendation, that is done in its entirety, and all of the other money go to complete Duke Park, including the soccer fields, the infrastructure, water, sewer, and whatever needs to be done out there. So all of that would be primarily focused on Duke Park and completing that. If there was money left over, the second item would be Miami Shores, go to the clubhouse renovation, do that as much as possible, trickle down to the driving range, and the last on the list would be the senior center. All of us in the committee obviously have our passions go in one direction, and we're all protective of our own little piece. However, everybody came together and made that decision, and it was unanimous within the committee. So we're not directing how funds are being made. It was a suggestion that was requested of us, and that's the priority list that we came up with. Where did the funds come from for the signs, et cetera? I just explained that. Why did the quest for the $4 million stop? Were funds not coming in? There is a stoppage in fundraising activities because in our preliminary field work, if you will, some of the folks that are usually and customarily hit and requested money indicated that they were waiting to watch and see what the citizenry was going to do with the vote on the levy. There's no need really to earmark or collect funds and just let them sit until this is done, and they were just waiting a couple of months and see what the election was going to turn out. So that's why we kind of put it on hold. But we do have some very positive signs out there regardless of anything else. What is being addressed with citizens, I think, does that cover that question, Mr.
Yeah.
Kendall? I didn't really, in that form it was written, I didn't understand that. But were there any other questions that came up from your talking in the community that need to be answered or addressed?
No, the biggest one that was asked was the first one about the establishing the priorities. Of course, a lot of that came from the golf side of things.
True.
And number three,
okay,
about the $4 million.
Okay. Other than that, we have got a letter of endorsement from the Miami County Visitors Bureau. The Miami County Visitors Bureau did have a study done on a Miami County-wide basis for a sports audit. If you have not seen it, let me know and I will email a copy of that to you. It's very eye-opening as to the amount of money that comes into our county, each city broken down, baseball, soccer, rugby, volleyball, basketball, and other things are in there. But how much money is generated with tournaments and what the absolute is, or the generated money that they have documented in there, but also what the possibilities are with larger facilities like we're contemplating here with this, with all of these projects, of what it opens up in economic development dollars outside of what is good for these little teams, if you will, for the community itself. It goes out further with new dollars coming in versus retread dollars that are here that just get turned over and over and over within the community, but getting new dollars in from outside with multiple day tournaments and that sort of thing. Troy Strawberry Soccer Festival is our key point that points that out, which I think we all know is a very high dollar generator here in the city. It also points out some lacking items, which are motels, which is a really big negative in some of the cities around us. But for larger events, points out where economic development, Troy Development Council and others would really kind of need to target to build those arenas and that. And there's other areas in there also, but those are kind of the things that stick out. I really think that that's about all I have, unless somebody has particular questions. Yes, ma'am.
2 items. The report or that you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
I would appreciate if you emailed that out to all council members. Okay. And then also, I would appreciate if you would restate the time and the date of that open house that you've got coming up.
It is October 25th at 6:30 p.m. We'll be at First Place Christian Center with the First United Methodist Church, which is right directly behind City Hall here.
Okay. And also, I noticed that Mr. Myers has arrived. Don't know. Scott, do you have anything further to add that you would like to add at this point?
I'm sure that Bobby is covered very well. I think that when the guards sign, I have the nomination.
Okay.
It might be that okay.
Thank you. Any questions from council members?
I think overall, we've had, within the committee, with all of the contacts that we have within our business community, within that group, personally and professionally, we've had very, very positive response and minimal negativity at all, which was early on, and we've had nothing recently. So unless you've had anything personally come about that we're not aware of, which you can share after the meeting or whatever, we don't have to air it here, but anything to be addressed, concerns, questions, please reach out and we will answer those questions. If anybody out there would like a coffee klatch or a neighborhood meeting, please contact me. Emails at the city website and phone number and that sort of thing, and we'll get that handled for you so that all questions can be answered. I want everybody to remember that it's a 10-year ending levy. It's not something that is anticipated as a renewal or anything. It is a new 10-year levy at a 2.01 mils level that equates to about $70.35 per $100,000 property valuation, which equals about $6 a month over a year. And if it's $100,000, it's $700.35 over the life of the 10 years, it's $700.35 or 50 cents, whatever the math is. On that, I had it written down and I don't have it in front of me. But anyway, it's a very easy way for us to have skin in the game, so to speak, and for the citizenry to get involved here versus all of the money coming from a philanthropic organizations that we just kind of request for. They're very, very generous, but I think that it's time for us to kind of stand up a little bit also.
Okay. Yes.
I'm
Mrs.
just
Soda.
wondering, Bobby, why did they wait so long? Why did the committee wait so long when early voting has already started?
What do you mean waited so long?
To do some public presentations and open house.
I don't have a real firm answer to that, except that some of the campaign strategy, if you will, or folks that we've talked to said you don't really need to do anything until about 3 weeks out and that sort of thing. So that's what we kind of targeted. And availability of venue to have large enough, kind of things, and looking around, this is where we came up with it was on a timely basis and free. So a lot of this stuff, like I said, has been our cost personally, so that it's not come from organizations or anything like that, but it's just timing of things.
I would also just like to point out that Mr. Phillips is speaking on behalf of Operation Recreation. He is not speaking on behalf of Troy City Council at this point.
Sure.
So, Mr. Terwilliger.
If the process is successful and it's all done, final stages, who's in charge?
Well, when you're dealing with a governmental agency or governmental property, anything that is given or donated or money is raised for a project, that item that is built becomes the property of that property owner. In this case, it is the City of Troy. So the items, even though they're partially being funded by private money, it's all City of Troy owned, if you will.
Parks and Recreation?
Parks and Recreation, yes.
So who makes the decisions on what's done?
Well, the City of Troy has the overriding authority to do all of that.
Mr. Titterington, do you want to clarify?
Sure. Of course, we work in partnership with the Parks and Recreation Department. The City of Troy, in this case, owns Duke Park. We're the title holder. Some of the parks are titled to the Park Board specifically. We work hand in glove with them, of course. Because this would be a bonded project, because it would be public general obligation bonds, the council would have the final say-so in the priorities, in the scope of the projects, in the order in which those projects would be completed.
Any other questions from council? Okay, thank you. So, on with comments. Mayor Beamish, do you have any comments for us this evening?
I have none tonight.
Mr. Titterington?
I have several. Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, just to clarify the question that was asked earlier regarding medical marijuana, as the President Baker stated, there will be a committee meeting and then the third reading at a minimum at the next council meeting. The ordinance, by state law, the city can regulate whether dispensaries, cultivators, or processes are allowed in Troy, and if so, how many. Beyond that, the state of Ohio is the entity that will create the rules, regulations, the hows and how nots, subject to our local zoning rules, of course. And so the state has up to 2 years to do that from the date that back in August or September when the state law became effective. So there is some time there, and it's not that those haven't been decided by us. They haven't been decided by the state rulemaking board at the state of Ohio. So on a lighter note, just a reminder that Halloween, again, trick-or-treating will be on Halloween, October 31st, 6 to 8 p.m. We are still in our first round of leaf pickup. We start round 2 estimated on Halloween. A reminder to those folks, since we are starting to see piles of leaves, please do not mix brush, sticks, twigs, etc. in with those leaves. We will continue to pick up brush if it's handled correctly, i.e. in the tea bags or bundled properly. We will still pick those up. We do that year-round. And finally, we anticipate that the North Market Street Bridge, that final lane that's been closed, should open up by the end of this week or early next week, weather permitting. They are wrapping up the painting of the understructure. They have some final sealing and coating of the bridge deck, and then I believe they're going to do some restriping to set the lanes correct. But again, this week or next week, it's getting close. That's all I have, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kerber, do you have any comments this evening?
No, I don't, Madam President. Thank you.
I would like to mention that the Meet the Candidate Night is October 20th at 7:30 p.m. at Troy Junior High School. This covers items of interest from Troy and Concord Township, races and issues that are going to be on the ballot. Are there any comments or questions from council members this evening?
I have a question.
Mrs. Zoda?
Patrick, back to the leaf collection. if there is brush mixed in with the leaves, what is the street department going to do?
We will attempt to notify the resident. We simply can't pick it up because the equipment will get clogged and jam, and it's expensive
I mean, I'm
to
already
fix.
seeing piles with sticks and
Yeah,
stuff
we
sticking
try
out. Will
to-
they just bypass those piles?
We won't be able to pick it up, but we will attempt to knock on the door, contact the individual, let them know. We do keep, we'll keep a list of them, and we will follow up with them so they don't think, well, why did the city just pass me up?
Okay, thank you.
And the dye mill facility is open till December 3rd, correct?
That's correct.
Any other council members? Any comments from city staff this evening? Any questions or comments from the audience? Thank you all for attending tonight's meeting. Have a safe and peace-filled week. Meeting adjourned.